This week we have a double episode, as firstly the Clarets face Arsenal in their Premier League campaign and also have a home tie against Rochdale in the third round of the Carabao Cup. This is the Nona Never podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Nona Never podcast. I'm your host Natalie Bromley, and joining me this week are regular panellists Tom Whitaker and, drumroll, the one who hasn't yet been bumped off for terrible FPL advice, Adam Dennett. Adam, let's come to you first. How are you doing this week? You and me need to have a chat.
Yeah, I've took a few pelters after that awful advice last week. I don't think I'll be asked on the preview show again for a while. But at least it led to me beating you in the head-to-head with that very, very poor advice I gave you.
No, me and Dave were annoyed. You sent me an email. For listeners who don't tune into the previous show, and why not, but anyway, if you didn't, Adam literally sent me an email that had 3 specific pieces of advice. Number 1, substitute out Lacazette. Fine. Number 2, replace Lacazette with literally anybody in the entire world. Okay, fine. And secondly, why on earth do you have Antonio on the bench? Get him in the side. Which I did. Not only did he not score, got sent off. Rubbish advice. Young Adam's got things to live up to.
And you cursed him. He were doing great for me before you got him.
Did I? You think you sent you a message saying I'd cursed somebody else as well, hadn't I? Who else had I cursed? Oh, Calvert-Lewin.
Dominic Calvert-Lewin as well. Yeah, you put him in and he got injured too. It's just not going well, is it?
The Bromley curse. So you see, what I should do, listeners, is that whoever Burnley's opposition are, I should literally film my Fantasy Premier League with all of their players the week before, and they'll all be injured and suspended. That's, you know what, I'll sacrifice my performance in the Nona Never FPL for the good of our team. Tom, or favourite one, as you're otherwise known in our group chat, how are you doing this week, sir?
Yeah, very nice to be back, Natalie, and it's nice to have a win to talk about for a change as well.
I know, it's very exciting. Well, listeners, that is exactly how we are going to start this podcast. We have got lots to talk about, of course. We've got the continuing troublesome league form, but we're not going to start there because there's nothing but sadness and just annoyance down that path. So we're going to start with the Clarets' fantastic home win in the third round of the Carabao Cup to get us into the fourth round draw. As we record, it will be this evening. I think we're recording, what day is it? Wednesday night, so we'll find out soon. And then we're not even going to talk about the league after that. We're going to talk about Dyche's new contract because that's even more good news. And then we're going to just dissect the league at the end. But don't worry, listeners, you don't need to switch off by that point. We're going to look at it with a good pair of eyes. We're going to concentrate on that second half performance, and we're just going to try and work out what we're going to do. It's going to be the Nona Never grand unified plan to get our Premier League season back on track. Let's see if we can come up with that. So, Tom, Carabao Cup, not one that people pay an awful lot of attention to, apart from me, because I'm a bit of a loser and do love a cup run. Did you get that sinking feeling that we'd been here before when Rochdale went 1-0 up?
The only way in which I didn't have a sinking feeling was that having been witness to many of our previous cup performances, I was at the Lincoln game, the Accrington game, the Burton game. I did put a few quid on Rochdale to win. So at least you bet with your head, not your heart, Natalie. So at that point, at least I've had the foresight to back this inevitable outcome when I wasn't at the game last night, unfortunately, but when the goal notification flashed up on my screen. But I think, with the team we've put out, I do think that there's an amount of squad depth we've got now that we perhaps didn't have in those previous years. You look at the 11 we put out, and I did have confidence that we had enough quality on that pitch to beat Rochdale. So I didn't get too downhearted when the goal went in, and lo and behold, my confidence was proved right, because obviously we've come back and wiped the floor with them in the end, and a performance and a result that's going to hopefully give the team a lot of confidence.
Yeah, definitely. Adam, going back to obviously what Tom picked up on there is that we did have a change to team, and perhaps unsurprisingly, then most of the changes being in the defence, because that's where we have most cover. And 4 out of the back 5 were brand new personnel, including a start for young Nathan Collins. And aside from perhaps a little bit of switching off for the goal, I thought on the whole they looked pretty well together. But is Tom right? Do we now have a little bit more quality where we can field more than just a starting 11?
Yeah, definitely. I think I were quite dubious before the Newcastle game whether we'd want a cup run, and I probably wouldn't have been too bothered if we'd have gone out on penalties. But now, yeah, after the 2 or 3 additions, the squad does look a lot stronger, and it's definitely something we can try and go as far as we can and not worry as much as we were doing before. Really positive performance by some of the players that probably needed some minutes. J-Rod, Cornet, Cork even, who's dropped out of the side for the last 2 or 3 weeks. So yeah, positive all round. And like you said, Nathan Collins looked very assured, I thought, other than obviously the goal, but we'll forgive him for that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's an interesting one, Adam, and I think I'm going to leave the Cork conversation for now because I want to speak about him when we get to the league discussions. I don't want to necessarily jump ahead of myself or repeat ourselves. But let's talk about Jay to start off with, because there's been a lot of talk about him perhaps looking a bit of a shadow of his former self and perhaps being low on confidence, probably not been helped by the fact that he's been put out of the side, particularly in favour of Barnes, who a lot of people are not wanting to see in the side at the moment. We know that strikers thrive off goals, and I'm assuming that we're just all now expecting Jay to become Messi from last night. It was an incredible performance from him.
Yeah, very good, very clinical when he needed to be, and that should fill him with confidence. Correct me if I'm right. Did he score a goal all last season? I can't remember a goal last season.
I feel like he might have scored one.
Like Watford
Palace
at the end of the
away,
previous season, the last one I can remember, but need Dave on to tell us.
Yeah, Palace away, a couple of Fulham in the cup as well.
Palace away, that would Ben Mee, weren't it? Or that year before.
Scored a couple, didn't we?
Anyway, yeah, no, I might be wrong.
We'll ask Statman Dave.
Yeah, we'll ask Statman Dave. But yeah, I think he really needed that boost. I don't think there's much between the other 3 strikers to start alongside Wood, but it'll be great if I didn't even consider him as the best option at all going into this weekend. I would probably in Vidra's camp, but last night he couldn't stay on his feet for the most of the game. He was slipping all over the place, Vidra. So I think he's got a real decision to make this weekend. And with Barnes seemingly off it, I really hope he's not in the starting 11 this weekend. Just because I don't think his performance has merited it.
No, I agree.
And yeah, Jay did score in the 3-0 at Palace last season, you're right. Tom's just put on the messenger chat.
I see. There we go. Thomas to the rescue. Shame Lawton scored a screamer. Yeah, poor Jay. So Tom, coming back to you, one of the things that we've been really struggling for all season is goals. We've just not been. We've created some stuff, but we've not been finishing it. What on earth? Like, was it something as obvious as a lower league opposition, or do you feel like there was something just clicked last night? Like, how did we score 4 goals?
Yeah, I think you'd be stupid to disregard the level of opposition. I mean, we've played some decent teams in the Prem so far this season. Played some not so decent teams as well, but Rochdale. We're not talking about even a championship team. I think they're in around the playoff places in League Two. So you'd be hoping that we would have the capability to put a few past them. I think the most noticeable thing for me, looking at the goals, was the quality of the delivery. I think against Arsenal, we put a lot of balls in the box, and not very many of them found a Burnley player. Now, obviously, Arsenal have got a better class of defender and goalkeeper than Rochdale. That goes without saying. Excuse me, but I did think some of the crossing was a bit more pinpoint. The one that stood out for me was Westwood's ball in for the third. Rodriguez just gets that bullet header at the near post. But also, the quality of Cornet makes a big difference. I think he got 1 or 2 assists where you teed that one up for Vidal for Rodriguez. his cross for the equaliser was good from the corner. And then Lennon put a decent ball in for the fourth as well. That's easier to pick balls out when you're playing against a lower standard of opposition. But for me, I think what we were really lacking against Arsenal was that final ball. And there was more quality in the final ball on Tuesday night. So hopefully that's a bit of confidence for Westwood. I don't think his corners have lived up to, maybe not. If we had Richard on tonight, he probably would say they have been living up to his usual standard, but perhaps not as good as they could be. But Cornet obviously has shown in what we've seen of him so far that he has got a touch of class and his delivery is good. So I think that was a big factor as well, and hopefully we'll see a bit more of that in the next few games.
Yeah, definitely. Adam, it was always going to be very early in the podcast that we started to talk about our new, already confirmed legend, I would suggest. His impact in the second half against Arsenal was incredible, but last night he got his first start, absolutely all over the pitch, looked confident, looked creative, couple of assists, should have scored 3 himself, and was just an absolute beaming ray of light, celebrating everything that he did with the boys like he's been here forever. Legend status confirmed for you, Adam?
Oh, you can't help but get carried away by the enthusiasm, can you? It were brilliant to watch. Just getting a corner in, I think about the 20th minute, and he's giving it all the arms up to the crowd, trying to get them up for the game when it's like less than half full turf. He just seemed to be really, really enjoying himself, and it was great to see, because you don't often see that that enthusiasm from players of that level. And just all the pictures that have come out after last night of him celebrating the goals and like applauding all the fans, even the Rochdale fans, I think got a round of applause from him, which I don't know whether that were another Umbro shirt pointing moment or deliberate, but no, absolutely. He's definitely got that spark and something just to be really excited about. And you could. Like I said, we won't go on to the Arsenal game, but he just gives the crowd a lift every time. Every time he gets the ball, he's got something exciting about him. So yeah, all positives. Like I said, hard not to fall in love with him already.
Yeah, definitely. Tom, you want to give a shout out to Cornet's Instagram? I don't think I follow him. This is. I don't know how I've missed this, but what is this?
This is a public service announcement for anyone who's not following Cornet's Instagram. Prior to each fixture, he puts a little video on his Instagram story, and the production values, I tell you what, they're 10 times anything the club's putting out. I don't know who's doing it for him, I don't know what he's paying them, but he's not paying them enough. Amazing. And the fact that he did a little gif of like a lion roaring and stuff for a preview of a Carling Cup game with, showing my age now, Carabao Cup game with Rochdale. I loved it. Honestly, a must follow if you're not doing so already on Instagram. Worth creating an Instagram if you haven't got one. Just
what's his handle? I can't even find him.
Oh yeah, best give that as well.
I'm just going to go on yours.
Yeah, just follow it off mine. I'll find it for you now. Honestly, unmissable. Cornet Maxwell. Could have guessed that, really, couldn't you? Yeah, check him out. It's brilliant.
Cornet Max. Oh, I've got Cornet Maxwell. Hashtag 27, and it is blue tick verified, 237,000 followers, and I'm about to press follow, and this is going to be amazing. So thank you for that, Tom. Good public service announcement there. I'm going to go and check out all of them from last night. Sorry, Adam, we interrupted you then. I don't think you finished your point.
No, I think it was Tom's point, but I just wanted to say I've not got Instagram, but seeing all these stories come through, I've never been as tempted to get it. I don't even know what it really is, but his videos and pictures on there are just phenomenal. So I think I'll be having a look.
Well, if there was ever a better reason to get on board the Instagram, what's the word I'm going to train, I guess, then Maxwell Cornet. Quite frankly, Maxwell Cornet could make me eat peas for my tea, and I don't like peas. They were sent by the devil. He could literally, that was a weird example, but I couldn't think of anything more extreme than that. But yeah, Maxwell Cornet could make me eat peas. That is the soundbite from this week's No Nay Never podcast. Tommy's influence is obviously not just in our own creativity, but it's the effect that it's going to have on the rest of the team. Do you feel like this gives Dwight McNeil much more freedom and much more pressure off his shoulders, or is that just perhaps a perception?
Do you know, the first thing that I did think yesterday when I saw the team sheet was, thank God McNeil's getting a rest. The last couple of seasons, because we haven't had the strength in depth, he's been playing every cup game as well. And if there's one lad who needed a rest, I think it was him, but he's not had the opportunity. So just that alone was really good, that that McNeil's getting the chance to have a midweek off, getting the chance to rest his legs a bit. It'll be interesting to see how it develops with Cornet and McNeil, because I don't know if he was necessary. I don't know if you'd necessarily want to shift McNeil out onto the right to accommodate Cornet. I mean, he's been doing great work for us down that left-hand side for the last 2 years. So I felt it was a bit of a shame that that it was McNeil that was moved. But on the other hand, perhaps it does just change things up a bit. Perhaps one criticism that we have had of McNeil in recent seasons is that he doesn't score enough. So if he's got the opportunity to be cutting inside from his right and shooting, perhaps we'll see the benefit of that. I did think McNeil's crossing, again, I mentioned earlier, put a lot of balls in on Saturday, but not that many of them, were decent balls in. And I think McNeil was probably the most guilty of that. So if it gives you the opportunity to mix his game up a bit like that, then that can only be a good thing. And just if you're not playing that well as well. I mean, how many games last season did he tire after an hour? Again, because we've been flogging him to death. It's not a criticism of him, but probably do with another option there. I thought it was a bit of a shame, really, on Saturday. That I think maybe McNeil was more of a prime candidate to be subbed than Goodmanson. But I'm sure, as the weeks progress and we get more game time out of Cornet, that those kind of positions will settle down. And I think the main thing for me is that there's not as much pressure on McNeil's shoulders. Not so much in that he's the only creative outlet, although of course that pressure will be taken off as well. But just the fact that he won't have to play 90 minutes week in, week out, play all the cup games and get flogged to death while his body's still developing. Easy to forget that he is still a very young lad.
Honestly, Tom, they were such good points. And you forget sometimes. And I think this is a problem across football as a whole, in that you do forget sometimes how young these kids are. And I really came to the forefront of my mind in the summer when we're at the Euros, and you look at the lads in the England side who were carrying the weight of the entire country on the shoulders, and having to put up with the abuse that they'd put up with and deal with that pressure. And you think to yourself, gosh, he's 19, he's 20, he's 22. I think back to when I was that age, there's no way I could have represented my own house, never mind my own country, to do these things. But footballers always seem like they're older than they are. It's a very weird thing, and we do put a phenomenal amount of pressure on them. So Adam, 4th round of the Cup. Listeners know I love a cup run. We don't tend to prioritise the Carabao Cup. We tend to go for the FA Cup if we've got ourselves good points at Christmas. But how excited are you to get round, and who do you want that isn't Manchester City in the next round?
I think there's only one standout tie left, last 16, one away from the quarters. One standout tie, and that'd be Preston. It'd be great to go back to, well, I think home game, if you want better chance of progression, I'd be really happy with that. But a trip to Deepdale that night in 2016, the promotion season, with 6,000 Clarets there, one of the best away games I've been to, and it'd be great just to relight that derby. It'd be a hell of a game if we did get them, but we'll probably get a South Coast or a Southern side or a Manchester City, knowing our luck. But we'll see what the draw gives us.
Yeah, definitely. Preston would be the dream draw. Brentford away would be pretty crappy. Liverpool, City, don't want them. Queen's Park Rangers away would be awful. Southampton away would obviously be awful. Stoke would be hilarious, just because we won't literally get.
There's not many good ones.
There isn't, is there? That would be pretty bad. Brighton away would be awful. There's a lot of like quite distant ones for us. So yeah, we're pretty much hoping for Preston or a home tie. Tom, can you get yourself excited about the League Cup, or is it all about the FA Cup for you? Or do you just not care as long as we're winning? The
problem is, a lot of people will be like, oh, Burnley, they've been in the Prem for a few years now. Why didn't they ever go winning a cup? Why aren't they winning a cup? And it's like, it's all well and good saying that. How many times have we had, beat what's in front of us until we get to Man City and then lose? And at some point in this cup, if we do get a good run going, we're going to get drawn against Man City or Chelsea or Liverpool or Man United. The only hope we're going to have in that game is if we play our best team and take it seriously, and they don't. Now, the chances of us playing our best team in any round this season, I would suggest before the final, is pretty slim. So I don't think there's that much point getting your hopes up about it, to be honest. We might get a good draw in the next round. Maybe if we have Preston or Stoke or something, a Championship team or QPR, we might squeeze past them. But I would suggest looking at the list of teams who are left in it, whoever we play, if we play a Championship team, they'll have the best team out and they'll be more up for it. If we play a Premier League team, it'll just be a case of whose reserves are better and more bothered. We came out the right side of that against Newcastle. Are we going to come out the right side of that against Tottenham or Liverpool? No, we're not. So, while I'd love a good cup run and I'd love to get excited about it, I've been burned too many times watching Sean Dyche's cup teams to think we're not going to get any further than where we've got already, to be honest with you.
I mean, that's justified, Tom, but I'm not going to lie, I was looking for something a bit more positive than that. I'm going to promote Richard Steele to my favourite if you're not very careful with chat like that. In that sense, then, let's talk about the other good news before we move on to the league, because what I want to talk about is taking that performance last night and that positivity and those chances and those goals and turning that around in the league. Before we get on to talking about the worry of our league performances, we of course have some very exciting news, which we touched on in the previous show on Friday. Adam, we got the wish. Sean Dyche, 4-year contract. He's going to stay as Burnley manager. The board have put their faith in him. I was very, very worried after the Everton game. Not because I wanted him to leave, but I was starting to get very concerned that the board might take drastic action. It would appear that they've got every faith he's going to turn it around. I'm going to say yes, but most significant signing of the season so far?
Yes. I think you've probably put in an early call for a bad shout of the season. With that, which I think Tom might have called you out for on the WhatsApp group as well. But let's hope it is anyway. But no, yeah, definitely the signing of the summer. It's the one that we've been seemingly waiting for a long time. Because news of it being close 2 or 3 months ago, I think Pace has proved himself probably to the fans and to the board. He's put his money where his mouth is. PR's definitely one of his strengths from the off, but it's really nice to see him backing it up. And Dyche's new contract's just the cherry on the cake. I don't want to go on too much because I know Tom is really, really pleased with this news. So after he dampened my cup enthusiasm, I think I'll let him be positive about something and talk more about Dyche. But no, really, really happy, and just hopefully now. If it can get the performances out of the team, and they can't use the money as an excuse any longer.
Excellent. Go on then, Tom. You definitely don't deserve this after dampening our cup enthusiasm, but the floor is open to you to get this news, the news you wanted, off your chest. How do you feel?
A lot more excited about. I said at the time of the takeover that really what I wanted out of a new ownership was Dyche to sign a new contract. I think we all knew, even looking from the outside, that the relationship between Garlick and Dyche had broken down irrevocably, and that he was going to be on the way out at the end of his contract had something not happened to change that. And obviously the change in ownership has changed. It was really encouraging to hear them say early on that they recognised the work that he'd done. You think with a lot of changes of ownership, a change of manager soon follows. Obviously, it was the case in Dyche's last job at Watford, but thankfully it's not been the case. And to be fair to them as well, they'd have had, if they were coming into it and they'd not done the due diligence, you look at the run of results we've had, 4 wins out of the last 25, I think, in the league. It doesn't make for great reading, but they obviously recognise that there's a legacy and a body of work that he's done already that is so fantastic. He's given us so much to build on. I've read some pieces in the national media this week saying, painting it out that it's like this kind of mid-table drudgery for the next 4 years, or we've got to look forward to staying up for 4 years. I don't think many of these people writing these articles have asked many Burnley fans, because I didn't see any kind of negative reaction to the news. I think everyone of the Burnley persuasion is realistic about our place, realistic about what we can achieve with the level of investment that the finances we have. And I think we've got probably longer memories than some of the naysayers. It was only 3-4 years ago with not a massive amount of financial backing that we were playing European football. It was only 2 seasons ago we had a top half finish. Last season we stayed up comfortably with a transfer budget of £750,000, which is probably unheard of, I would suggest, in this day and age in the Premier League. And to me, while we're going through a sticky patch at the minute, and we know that what we're seeing is the result of 2-3 years of underinvestment from the previous board, we've got a manager who steered us through that so far. We've got a board now who are willing to back in. We've brought some players in who look exciting. I think the performance level this season so far has been better than at the similar stages in the previous 2 seasons when we've also had sticky starts, so that gives you a bit of confidence. And I think if we can weather this storm, get ourselves over the line this season, we are not going to get a better manager than Sean Dyche. We're not going to get a better manager if we get relegated. We're not going to get a better manager to get us back into the Prem, and we're not going to have a manager who's more likely to get us into the top half, lead us into European competition. So, simply put, it's fantastic news. We've done incredibly well as a club to keep hold of him for 9 years, and to get him tied down another 4 years is absolutely fantastic. And I'm really pleased that the board can see that that's the kind of decision that we needed to make. So, yeah, absolutely fantastic news for me.
Hear. What a fantastic monologue, young Tom. Couldn't agree more. I'm absolutely delighted that he signed on. I think despite all of our worries and concerns, I think what we all wanted was for Dyche to turn it around and sign a new contract. All of us want Dyche to be a success. And I think what worried me a little bit, after, just to put some context on the abuse that I'm getting from the team, which is just because it's Wednesday and they like to tease me all the time. But to put some context on what I really feared after the Everton game, that when you do have a new board and they've invested all this money in the club and you haven't necessarily got the goodwill and the previous relationship, and you've got owners who haven't seen us do the same thing in previous seasons, I really worried that the board were going to lose patience and make a drastic decision. And I genuinely, after the Everton game, couldn't see Dyche being with us at the end of the season. Not because I didn't want him to be, and not because I thought that he deserved to be, but I genuinely thought that the board might panic. And seeing the board put their faith in his ability by giving him a new contract, and for those of you who don't possibly understand the implications of that, it of course means that if they've just given him a new 4-year deal and they decide to sack him at Christmas, the amount of money that it's going to cost them in compensation to him by sacking him, because you can't just sack him and rip up the contract and walk away. You have to pay out the manager an agreed amount of compensation, which on a 4-year contract is going to be very expensive. So it just goes to show that they were prepared to put their faith in him, because otherwise they'd just let his contract run out and see how we were at Christmas and sack him for a lot less. Yeah, delighted. I think everybody's really pleased with that. So long may the Dyche reign continue. Long may he make my takes look stupid, and I'll take that every day of the week. And yeah, listeners, let us know. It's been a while since we talked about this, but do let us know. Oh God, what have I let myself in for here? Tom's hand's just gone up. What have you got to say, Tom Whittaker?
I thought I'd say, the only reason that I've been pushing this as a potential worst take of the season winner is because I really want to lose the crown for this season. So don't take it too personally.
Oh, duly noted, Tom. And you know what? We're only 5 games in. And I keep saying this every season. At some point, I'm going to screenshot some of our chats in our team thread, because we're all fans and we're all incredibly passionate. And what comes with passionate support of your club are sometimes quite irrational comments. And Tom, as is completely expected, is the constant calmness in our group. He just calms us all down and says we're all being idiots. But George tends to be the perennial optimist. Me and Rich are usually the panickers. Adam keeps coming in every now and again. Adam, you sit in Tom's camp, I think. You're very level-headed and you're just like, look, guys, I'll be fine. and producer Matt's just the referee. So yeah, I'm going to produce some of these at some point, because you can guarantee that there will be a lot of contenders for bad take of the season. Adam, coming back to you then, and we are going to need to move on now, because we've obviously we do need to address the league form, because as much as we're delighted with the cup run, as much as we're delighted with Dyche's new contract, we are of course 5 games into the season and we have a grand total of 1 point, and we have so far dropped 8 points from winning positions. First half against Arsenal, Adam, pretty abysmal. It just felt like everything was going wrong, and it felt like that was just everything piling on top of us.
Yeah, it was just really flat, and like Tom said, we've been performing quite well in parts of the other games this season, but the whole of the first half against Arsenal were just no energy. I think you could sense it in the crowd that at half time, once Arsenal had scored just before, there was a slight inevitable feel about the game, and it just didn't feel like Burnley. And then obviously it was good to see Dyche make changes and recognise that earlier than he normally would in the second half, and that just gave everyone such a lift, and actually felt like a bit of a positive feel at the end of the game. Just the impact that the substitutes had, because it's been a while since we've had that impact off the bench in any sort of form. And although we didn't get the goal and probably the deserved equaliser, and with the penalty, which I don't know whether we're going to talk about or not, but it just, yeah, it felt like a turning point, and hopefully it is the turning point. Obviously, Leicester won't be an easy game, but Norwich at home is already looking like a very big game. But I'm confident that the performances will turn into points in the coming weeks.
Yeah, definitely. Tom, most of us will probably have seen it by now. We shared it in our group not so long ago, but Ashley Westwood gave an interview this week. I think it's in the Daily Mail. I do try to avoid the Daily Mail where possible, but somebody sent me a screenshot of it where Ashley Westwood was talking about how the team scratched their heads a lot at you called it the perennial slow starters. I'm going to post something here, because for me, it always feels like our slow start is somehow linked to Jack Cork not being in the side. And when he does come back in, we get ourselves somewhere back into it again. And last night, Cork was back in the side and it was a much improved performance. I'm not feeling this Westwood and Brownhill centre midfield partnership.
I don't know. I'd be interested to ask Dave to dig out the stats for the first few games, to see how many Cork played. It would be interesting to see it. I think he's perhaps a little bit more defensively minded, a little bit more solid than Brownhill. But for me, I don't think there's that much between all three of the midfielders. I think they're all very similar players, to be honest. So I'm not one of these who is kind of. I mean, I probably would play Cork on Saturday over Brownhill, but I'm not one of these that thinks he's going to be a panacea. I think he's, like I say, I think they're all quite similar, and I think a lot of the problems we have probably the fact that we've got a 2-man midfield up against the 3 a lot of the time, and if they're both pressing and the spacing behind, you can probably say that Cork's natural inclination is not to press quite as much. But yeah, like I say, I don't know. I don't know if there's that much of a difference between him and Brownhill, myself personally. Maybe just a bit of experience, you could say, over anything else. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't play Cork on Saturday. I think I'd certainly have him over Brownhill, but I don't know if that's necessarily a panacea.
Fine. We were talking about decisions earlier on, Adam. We're talking about just periods of lacking of concentration coming in and just some poor decisions. And I think this for me was very much evidenced by the first goal, in that it felt very much that Pope rushed the clearance that led to the goal being put out of play, which then led to Arsenal pressing very quickly, which meant that Westwood had to bring him down, or decided to bring him down, which then, of course, ended up in the ball in the back of the net. And that whole sequence just felt a little bit unlike us. And it's mistakes like that. And again, this links back as well to the defeat against Everton, where 6 crazy minutes just saw us going from being well in that game and performing very well to being defeated. And it's that kind of thing that's concerning me this season.
Yeah, I think we're maybe slightly unfortunate where we've been punished a lot in key moments, and that's the nature of the Premier League. You do get punished with for minor mistakes, and like the Everton game, I don't think obviously Townsend has got it in his locker to score that sort of goal, but he'd not scored in a year, and then having just equalised, for him to pull that out of the bag, it really did. It flattened me on my couch. Never mind what it must have felt like on the pitch. And then again, Pope. I don't think it's as much of a surprise. He does have that moment of a poor clearance or like rash when he's having to use his feet. I think the media point that out every time that he makes any slight error with his feet. But I think the fact. I think the reason it's been highlighted is because of the sequence of play afterwards that obviously led to the goal. So it's an area that I think he knows he needs to improve, but I don't think that is a one-off lapse. I think it is a part of his game that he's working hard on, but it has got the potential to cost us every now and again. But the majority of the time, I don't think it will. And obviously, he makes up for that with his performances over the season. You'd much rather have his what he gives you than his weakness with his feet. So I'm not going to criticise him too heavily. It's just I think we've been slightly unfortunate in some games, and obviously it's definitely a worrying trend with throwing away leads over the period of time. But I think once we get going over the longer period of time, Tom talked about short memories. The strong jaw will return. And all will be good again.
Good stuff. I like it. So Adam's definitely on Team Pope, and that is a good thing. Tom, we have to raise these because some of our listeners have contacted us about a couple of points on the pitch that they are concerned about, that they want us to address. I'm not saying that we necessarily share these views, but we're going to look at them. First common theme of these two, and I'll take the second one to Adam, but the first one is a perceived vulnerability for Charlie Taylor this season, and perhaps not performing well, and perhaps could do with a spell and be replaced by Eric Peters. Discuss that a little nugget for us, please.
I don't think there's that much between Taylor and Peters, really. I don't think it's not a bad point. Certainly at fault for the goal against Leeds. Don't know if that was really his fault or that he probably just slipped. In fairness to him, I think it'd be a bit harsh to blame him for that one. Obviously, 2 goals against Brighton came down the right-hand side, but equally, I think the problem there was really the midfield, the fact that it was so easy for them to get control in the middle and spray it about as they pleased. No issues with him against Everton that I can think of, no issues with him against Arsenal. I don't think that's the most glaring deficiency in the team at the minute. I mean, by all means, like I said, I don't think there's that much between Taylor and Peters, and I think Peters probably slightly more defensive-minded player. So if Dyche thought, maybe he needs a couple of games on the sideline and tried Peters for a couple of games, by all means, I wouldn't be particularly averse to that, but I don't think it would make that much difference. I think I prefer Taylor as our starting left-back, and I think that defensive unit's been quite settled for a long time now, and I don't see that there's any massive reason to make a change on that side.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much where I've come down on that one. I think there are pros and cons to both players, and I think I just think the benefits that we get from Charlie Taylor, even if there are some weaknesses in his game, I'd rather have that. So yeah, I would definitely tend to agree with that. Adam, the other player who's coming under a substantial amount of flack at the moment is, of course, Ashley Barnes. The question on everybody's lips, is he done? Are we over Ashley Barnes? Oh, what a horrible thing to have to discuss.
It's a really, really difficult question. I've been a big fan of his for a long time, like many Burnley fans, but the recent performances haven't been up to scratch, and that goes back into last season with the inconsistencies with the injuries. I don't think he merits a place in the side at the moment. He's not completely over the other thing. Is he 31, 32? He's still got time, but obviously he's a player that has played better in the past when he's had a run of games, but there's just not much sign of that at the moment. So I think Jay or Vidra's got to start this weekend. I'm not willing to write him off completely yet after the fond memories of the last few years, but at the moment, yeah, it's not looking great for Ashley Barnes and the faith that Dyche is showing in him. I think I put on the group that I wouldn't have started him last weekend, and came back from the group with a very good point. He'd be playing against maybe a soft Arsenal back two, and Barnes and Wood is probably the best combination if you want to soften teams up. But I even thought Vydra caused more problems in the air than Barnes did when he came on the other day, won a few headers. I just don't see what he's offering at the moment, and he seems to be making up for the lack of form with even more aggression than usual. Obviously, we were in the book earlier the day, which kind of tempered him slightly, but he's done a few silly things this season where there've been minimum yellow cards, and it just seems like he's overcompensating.
Yeah, I think similar to Tan, I think that's exactly. I think I would agree with that. I think it's all right as fans to move on from players, but still appreciate what they've done for your team so far. Ashley's been absolutely brilliant for us, but I think some of the criticism levied at fans who are questioning his form are saying, like, how can you have a go at Barnes? He deserves a place in the side. He's come from a lower league club, and what a brilliant thing he did for us in the promotion year when we went up behind Leicester, and he carried us when Vings got injured. And so you kind of look at that and you say, well, yeah, you can still appreciate that, but players don't last forever. And to me, Barnes has now passed the peak of where he was going to be, and I don't think we're going to see a return to the Ashley Barnes that was so effective for us. And I also think, and I've been saying this for a few podcasts now, that the team is trying to evolve past that direct route one, just put the ball up to two very strong strikers up front. The media seem to be obsessed in trying to keep us in that Stoke identity of, that's all Burnley play, but we don't. And you can see it in the build-up play, and you can see them trying to do something different and being more open and being more creative. And if we're going to do that, which we need to do to progress, we can't do that with Ashley Barnes up front. So I agree. I also don't think he's done anything to justify a start in the team on Saturday, which then obviously begs the very important question, Tom. Who gets the nod with Chris Wood? Do we play Vydra or do we play Jay? If indeed we're going 4-4-2.
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because apart from Wood, I don't think any of the strikers really staked the claim for the place that much last year. In terms of goals, I mean, probably 2, 3 and 2 or something between them. Not very many from any of them anyway. Vydra, for me, I think the team plays better when he's playing. I think you made a great point there about the evolution of the style. The Everton game, it stood out for me. There was in the first half, we had so much of the ball, and we're playing these little balls around the corner into the channels, and we've got Wood running onto them, and you just think you're wasting him, making him run into the channels to pick these balls up and cross them for Barnes. That's the job Vydra should be doing, and that's the job Vydra does really well. So you made a great point there, and I think if we are looking to evolve the style in that way, and we know we've got that in our locker, then he's the obvious choice for me. The problem, obviously, that we've got for Saturday is now Rodriguez has given the manager something to think about. And I know it's only Rochdale, but it's 4 goals, and I don't think Vydra scored 4 goals in the last 2 years. Probably, I don't think Barnes has either. So, and they've all played lower league teams in that time. So, I think if you're Rodriguez, you're probably thinking, if I don't get a start on Saturday, what have I got to do? But yeah, I think I thought you both spoke very well about Barnes. I think you made all the points I would have liked to. So yeah, for me, as long as he's 4th choice, I don't care which one starts. I think Rodriguez has staked a good claim for the place, but I think also the team looks better when Vidra's playing. So as long as we see someone up there with Wood that isn't Ashley Barnes shaped, then I'll be delighted.
Here. The other main talking point then, Adam, from the game, which is the last one I want to do before we wrap up, is another VAR controversy that we went to. I don't think this is as controversial as people make out. The introduction of Vidra and Kone in the second half turned that game around. I thought we were brilliant in that second half. And actually, I felt that it feels like we're going to look back on that second half of Arsenal as a turning point where our season finally started again and we got a little bit into our stride and we just suddenly started to play differently. And it was those chances and that press and that pressure that got us to the point where we won what many people are claiming was a very valid penalty. Referee gave it. VAR then looked at it as they look at every penalty. Despite us being told that they only look at clear or overrule clear and obvious errors, it was not clear and obvious enough that they told the referee that he had to go and look at it on the screen, who then changed his mind and didn't give it. And then in some very bizarre turn of phrase, even though he didn't give the penalty because he determined that Ramsdale was the last one to get the ball, we then didn't get a corner. Please help us to understand this nonsense, Adam.
I don't think they got a corner because I think he stopped play before the ball went out because he'd blown his whistle for the foul, so it had to be a drop ball.
So that is the rule. Okay, well, that's a good thing to clarify because a lot of people did question that.
I think it's stupid, really, because when he's looked at it and it's clear it's gone out for a corner, maybe a bit of common sense, but I think that is the law. But in terms of the decision, I don't so much have a problem with it not being given as a penalty. It's the inconsistencies that are going to annoy fans again, particularly given the Patrick Bamford penalty last year against Leeds being very similar. And I remember at the time being absolutely furious that wasn't overturned by VAR when Pope had clearly got the ball. The only annoyance from me is that in two very similar incidents, we've fallen on the wrong side of both, and I don't think that should be able to happen under VAR. But you saw different pundits saying different things about whether they thought it were a clear and obvious error. I think when you look at the replay, you can see he's got the ball. If that was Pope, I would not want that to be given as a penalty. First viewing, I thought it was a penalty, so it's still a grey area. But I've not got an issue with the decision on Saturday. Just bringing back old skeletons out of the closet from the game last season.
Yeah, I agree. We've been banging on about consistency for a long time, and it does. And maybe this is perception because you tend to remember the times that you feel you got shafted rather than the times that you benefited from it. And of course, we have had the benefit of some VAR decisions. I remember that brilliant game at home to Bournemouth when something went, there was the penalty and then Bournemouth scored and then they counted out their goal, gave the penalty, and it was an absolutely brilliant game. Sorry, Adam, did you want to just finish off that point before we moved on?
Yes, all I wanted to say was it just had to be Arsenal, didn't it? After all the times that they shafted us when VAR wasn't in existence, for them to get a decision that gets them the win at Turf Moor just again brings up the past, and it's something you'll never forget as a fan. Them three late penalties, two late penalties and offsides and handballs and all the other farcical things that happened. But yeah, sorry, I just remembered how angry I was about that on Saturday as well.
Hey, look, this is an outlet, but are you okay? Do we need to talk? Do we need to make you a cup of tea and give you a known and ever virtual hug here? I feel like we've unearthed some pain.
No, I just. Again, I just want to say thank you for. I can say this to you guys now, and I don't have to whine on it at my wife because she must have got really fed up. Now I can just take out all my frustrations on you guys. It's fantastic.
Hey, listen, that's how I've got away with doing the podcast for 10 years, Adam. So my other half is a Burnley fan as well, but because I practically wrote it into my wedding vows that he would be a Burnley fan, he doesn't have a choice. And he always knows when Burnley get beat or things are going down, he's always like, oh, Lord. So he very much encourages me to do the podcast because he doesn't have to listen to me. I can vent on here. So, yeah, believe me, no nay never. It's not really a public service for the fans. It's marriage counselling for Team No Nay Never. That's all it is. Finally then, Tom, we promised our listeners that we would come up with the grand unified plan to solve our Premier League start. So, away at Leicester on Saturday, not probably the side we wanted to see, but they're not faultless this season. How do we start our campaign starting on Saturday? What do we do?
Yeah, so after the game on Saturday, I was a little bit more sort of downbeat about our chances of survival compared to what I was like this time last year, and that's because I think we're playing well and yet we're still not getting the results. Whereas last year there were so many obvious improvements we could make to the performance of the side. Players who've been out injured or weren't fit, getting back up to speed. But some of the responses I got on Twitter, a chap called Dan Lord in particular, if he's listening, I thought he made some really good points about there's some obvious upgrades we can make to the team, or there's obvious places we can make changes. So the glaring one we've already been speaking about is Barnes has just been a dead weight this season. It's been like playing with 10 men. It was awful on Saturday. It looked like he'd won a competition to be there. So there's an obvious upgrade straight away. Whether you bring Rodriguez and or Vidra, you'd like to think we're going to have a bit more at that end of the pitch first of all. The depth out wide is so much better than it was this time last year. You know, even in the second game of the season against Liverpool, we're bringing Eric Peters on when we need a goal to play wide right. We've got 4 good options there now. We've got Cornet, who's an upgrade probably on what we had there this time last season. And it's not been often in the last few seasons we've been able to upgrade the first 11, so that's really good. There's obvious changes you can make or that you potentially make in, like I said, I don't think there's much between Brown and Cork or much between Taylor and Peters. But having said that, those are 2 options you've got to change around straight away. Roberts, when he's fit again, to challenge Loughton. One thing that I was thinking about on Saturday was Loughton was trying to do a long throw at the end, and I think maybe he should learn how to do one before he actually starts doing them. But I've heard that Roberts has got a long throw, so that might be a weapon that we can utilise as well. When he's fit and if he does get into the team. So the strength and depth is much better this season. There are obvious upgrades we can make. There's players who perhaps could get into form a little bit more. I think Hope's not been at his best so far this season, so perhaps if we can get some better performances out of him, we're going to see a difference as well. I think I'll probably on a giddy high of a 4-1 win over Rochdale, but I've got a sneaking feeling we might cause Leicester some problems on Saturday. I don't think they've had a great start. I've got visions of a Maxwell Cornet cut inside from the right and bend it in the top corner for a last-minute winner at the King Power. That's probably the overexcitement of a home win talking. But I think after that chat on Saturday, obviously you do come away from the game a bit despondent. But I think there's things we can do to improve. I think there'll be 3 worse teams than us at the end of the year, and if we keep evolving in the next couple of transfer windows, then we can look forward to a brighter future for sure.
Excellent. Words of wisdom. Adam, a final word from you before you go. We cannot improve on that summary of what Tom just said about our grand unified theory. So we have presented to you said theory. You are Dyche and you are allowed on Saturday to make one of those changes. Just one. Which one? Which one do you categorise as being the most important?
Just one player?
No, one thing, one change. It doesn't have to be a player. It can be a style. It can be anything. What's your one thing that you change on Saturday to make an improvement?
Win.
Useful. Thanks. And there we have it, listeners. That is the No Nay Never Grand Unified Theory on turning around our Premier League season. We're just going to win. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up because, quite frankly, I can't improve on that. So thank you very much to everybody who joined in to make this episode possible. Of course, my colleagues Adam and Tom for joining us to analyse all of that information, to get giddy about 4-1 victories over Rochdale and Dyche's contract. Obviously, to producer Matt, we've had a few technical issues today. Producer Matt, listeners, if you see any bloopers, whatever they're called in here, I've been trying to keep running commentary as we've been recording to tell Matt which bits we've made mistakes, but we might not catch them all. So you might hear us rambling and going, oh Lord, we've lost Tom again, or where's Adam gone? So apologies if it wasn't polished, but we try our best. Oh my God, I can't remember the name of our music provider. To the lad who does our music provider, and I've come to recording without my notebook, I'm so sorry. Matt will link you on the No Nay Never announcement to make sure that you are credited with our jingles. Thank you very much. But finally, to you, the listener, for downloading and listening to this episode, your support is very much appreciated, and we would not be here without you. We will be back on Friday, Dave and I, with this week's episode of the preview show, looking ahead to that fixture against Leicester. And the rest of the team will be back next Tuesday with what will hopefully be the first win of the season. Get in touch in the meantime. You can tweet us at nonanever, or you can email us at podcast@nonanever.net. We would love to hear what your grand unified theory is on how we turn around this season. This has been the Nona Never podcast. I've been Natalie Bromley. Until next time.